I have figured out the Etsy algorithm. These secrets no one will have told you before answer the questions about Etsy SEO, the algorithm and search in 2021. Some questions I'm going to be able to answer today include: how long does it take to rank a listing in the Etsy search? And I bet you it's not how long you think it is. In fact, let me know in the comments below, if you put up a listing right now, how long do you think it would take to rank in the Etsy search? Is it better to create a new listing or relist an existing listing or change the SEO on a totally different listing? And the really odd one that I've been getting asked is, why are my listings all showing up on page 17 of the search? I think I can finally answer that today. I've been looking into what Etsy tell us, also some super secret info, and been doing some science. I've even got some of the crafty clan in to help me with some of this research. This is going to be the definitive guide to the algorithm, so it's likely to be long, so I'll put some timestamps in the description and they should show up as chapters on the video if you want to skip to a bit that particularly interests you, or come back and check something again that you might have missed. But I promise you there's going to be some information here that you've never heard before. Let's start with what is Etsy SEO and algorithms. SEO is search engine optimization. When a potential customer types something into the Etsy search bar, they're shown a list of potential items that they might want to buy. SEO is simply the steps that sellers take to say to Etsy that they think they're relevant for those search terms. And please, Etsy algorithm, could you possibly show me to customers when they're searching for those things? Things like what you put in your titles and tags, and even how you treat your customers and if you have your policies filled in, all impact how Etsy decides if it wants to show you. I'll link below a great article from Etsy, and I have a whole playlist of factors that go into ranking on Etsy, so you want to check them out. So what is an algorithm? Well, actually it's more correct to say algorithms, because there is more than one. And all these algorithms are working together to show Etsy customers potentially what they're going to want to buy. Some searches have millions of listings that they could potentially show to customers. So the algorithm's job are to weed out all the irrelevant ones and show the customer the ones that they're most likely to want to buy. Etsy has told us that this is basically a 3-step process, and I'm sure this is very oversimplified. But the first algorithm finds every single listing that's relevant to that search term. Anything that has in the title, tags, attributes, anywhere, it has a match for the words that the customer is searching for. So if someone searches for an engagement ring, this first algorithm finds every single listing that it thinks might somehow be relevant for engagement ring. The second algorithm ranks these based on these ranking factors that we already know about, how well the titles and tags match, how listings have done, how similar listings have done in the past. All these ranking factors that Etsy's told us about, and potentially loads more factors that we can't be aware of. But the algorithm ranks them in an order of which listings it thinks is most relevant for what's been searched for. The ranking factors are tweaked in their importance and all sorts of things, because the point is that Etsy is trying to be able to show the customer the best option so they make more money and the customer has better satisfaction being able to buy the thing that they want. The point of an algorithm is not for sellers. It is to hopefully show the customers what they want, but the most important thing is it's there to make Etsy money. The third algorithm is the personalisation one. This is relatively new. Etsy's been talking about it for a few years now, and this takes into account the person who is searching for this searched term. Factors about where they live in the world and what kind of things they've searched for before. And I'm sure plenty of other things and more things to be added in the future. Okay, well, how long does it take to get shown in the search? There's actually lots of different advice here. Some people say it happens immediately, other people say it can take several months. So, who's right here? Etsy does tell us that new and renewed listings get a little boost in search while it tries to figure out how they perform. So this does seem to suggest to me that Etsy's saying that they rank them immediately, that they put them in search immediately. And over time they might drop down in the rankings, and this is roughly what I've been seeing. But let's not take Etsy's word for this, let's experiment. So I make a new listing with a made-up keyword that only I will have a listing for. This way, when I search for it, it'll be easy to find. Around 10 minutes after publishing, I search and there my item is, right on the front page. It is the only item, but it's there, it's ranking. So that's the answer, isn't it? Right? It ranks almost right away. Let's try a bigger experiment. That was too easy. I choose dog ring bearer, as this is something I know from past that I've been able to rank for. There is some competition, so I'm not guaranteed position number 1, but at least I'm likely to get seen in the search. So I check in eRank. The PAM test listing is showing up on page 1 of Etsy. Great. Case closed, right? Well, no, when I go into Etsy and search, there's no sign of my listing on page 1 or page 2 or page 3. In fact, I search all the way to page 17 and finally my listing is there on page 17. And hang on, people in the past have come to me and said, Pam, why is it when I make a new listing, it just shows up on page 17? And I've kind of ignored them. I've said, what rubbish are you speaking, basically? I thought, why on earth would that be the case? That sounds totally impossible. And yet, something as very specific as page 17, and that's where my item's sitting. So there might be something to this, but one test's never enough. Let's do another test. Cat bookmark. I know I can rank for it, but it's a little harder to rank for. So I create another listing. I use the PAM test tag as well, so I can find it if I need to know if it actually exists on Etsy. But also I'm aiming for a cat bookmark. 15 minutes later, an eRank is showing this in page 1, rank 18. PAM test, both my listings are there on Etsy. So let's search for cat bookmark. Not on the first page. Could it be on page 17 again? Let's just skip there. And it is. Unbelievably, this totally different listing for a completely different keyword with completely different amounts of competition is right there on page 17. What gives here? So I asked my crafty clan to check out as well, and quite a lot of you also found my item on page 17. Not everyone, but enough for it to still be weird. Now, tools like eRank get their ranking data directly from the Etsy API. And we know this position is taken after the second algorithms got hold of it, before it's sorted for personalizations. And actually I like this because it's like getting a grade from Etsy. They're telling me my SEO is on point. Now it's just what they think of the personalizations afterwards. But if I'm ranking well after the second algorithm, I've done everything I can right. And it's up to the customers now. So while I was puzzling over this, I remembered a while ago someone had come to me saying their shop wasn't showing up in Etsy, and I checked the data from the API and I was like, no, there it is, it's showing up. But they insisted it wasn't, and I went onto Etsy and they were right, I couldn't find them. And I discovered that meant that their shop hadn't been indexed. And it's been a regular thing. Occasionally new shops are just not indexed, they're not showing up in search. So they're in the API, they show up on eRank, but they don't show up in the search. And Etsy also has the ability to do this. They told us last year that if a shop has suddenly a lot of open orders, it can remove the shop from search, and that de-indexes it. It shows up after the second algorithm, but it just doesn't show up in search for the actual people searching. So not indexed shops show up in the rank checker, but not on Etsy. Could this be a case of my listing not being indexed? I need to get more nerdy. Let's dive into that personalization algorithm. I realized I had just the place to check. A while back I'd found the coders blog where Etsy coders were talking about how they did their coding. They told us about the Etsy ads algorithm. And if you haven't seen my video on that and you run Etsy ads, you've kind of got to watch that. But I discovered they also have a blog post on the personalization algorithm. This is explaining how this algorithm's been created to show the customer things personalized just for them. There's some really interesting examples. For instance, if a customer's been looking at lots of resin things lately and then searches for lamps, it's more likely to be shown some more resin lamps than a normal customer. And there's lots of interesting data here, especially how people are much more likely to buy from just the first page of search. So this means this personalization algorithm is working. It's showing buyers the right thing. It's getting better. But the issue is it would take hours to do this for all the millions of listings for a keyword. People want to search and see results right now. They don't want to see that spinning screen as Etsy tries to figure out what to show them. So my metaphorical ears really perked up when I read this next bit. The personalization algorithm does not rank all the listings that it finds in the first 2 algorithms. It only ranks the top 1,000 listings. And hang on, roughly with ads and stuff, that would be somewhere around page 17. Not exact, but close enough. So it could be that a brand new listing is not yet indexed in the personalization algorithm. Okay, so how long before it does actually start showing up? I went back 36 hours later, searched for cat bookmark, and there was my listing on page 3. And when I check eRank's rank checker, it's showing page 3 as well. Dog ring bearer, it's on page 1, and eRank says the same, says it should be on page 1. And why are these different? Why do I have one on page 1 and the other on page 3? Well, Etsy does tell us that it only gives us a short boost, and I have noticed that the more competitive a keyword is, the quicker I fall away in the search. So cat bookmark is more searched for, is more popular just now than dog ring bearer, so I don't stay ranking for quite as long. So basically, by the time I get indexed for the personalization algorithm, I've already dropped down the rankings. And it makes sense. The more popular something is, the quicker Etsy can gather data. But this is a pain, because how are you ever really going to get seen in search if you've already fallen away down the search before you're even shown in the search? Oh wow, and hold on, I have just remembered. Someone once told me that they paid an Etsy SEO expert who did some magic. They'd put up their listing and it was on page 17, but then the SEO expert had advised them on some things they could do to tweak their listing, and magically it got to page 1. These experts are profiting from this feature. Hopefully they're not aware and this is just a superstition and they think they're doing good, but basically they're selling their services to people on something that would have happened automatically if they'd have just waited. They're telling people that they're magically making the listings rank higher, and it's not the case. But this is an issue. If our listings never really actually get that boost, then it's going to be tough for them to be being seen. So what about renewing a listing? Does that take time to get indexed? Let's test. So a few days later from my cat bookmark listing, it's not showing up in eRank at all. It's dropped out of the rankings, but it still ranks for my crazy tag. And I flick through Etsy and yeah, it's all the way down at page 18. So I jump into my shop and I renew and wait 15-20 minutes. And eRank shows it on page 3. Go search Etsy now. It's not on page 17, that's good. I flick through, it's on page 5. So this is close enough. Now, a reason it might be coming in quite so low now is in the days between this test, my other cat bookmark listings made some sales, so they have stronger signals for the algorithm. Unfortunately, it's impossible to do a complete clean test because people are interacting with your listings. So how about I change the SEO in a totally different listing? What if I add cat bookmark to that dog ring bearer listing? So I change it, renew it, leave it for that 15 minutes, and it's not showing on eRank at all. I go and search through Etsy and it's on page 15. So likely it's indexed, but it's not ranking very high. And for dog ring bearer, it's on page 2, so it's ranking well for that. It's like Etsy understands that it's irrelevant for a cat bookmark, but it's relevant for dog ring bearer. So Etsy already understands something about this listing. It's possible that past histories might impact the position of an old listing that you've updated the SEO for. Drat! I thought we'd figured out a secret here. Now, before we start my conclusions, I want to give a warning here. This is only a one-person test. It's a small-scale test. Don't take my advice for anything. Don't take anyone's advice. Run your own tests. In fact, I would love to hear how your tests go if you experiment with this. Do you find the same as me? Did you find something different? let's figure this out together. Make sure you don't break any rules on Etsy when you create a test. But creating a test keyword and making listings that I can sell, they're perfectly okay. So my take home from all of this. It takes a day or so for a new listing to show up fully in a competitive search. Obviously, if there's not many listings there at all, if there's only one page of results, then you'll show up on page 1. If there's only 3 pages of results, you'll show up on page 3. But if there's more than 17 pages, you'll initially show up on page 17 before reaching a different position in a couple of days. And that position is lower. So basically, with a new listing, you're kind of missing that newness boost that we were promised. Relisting does boost your item and it is indexed immediately. It's not necessarily quite as high as a brand new listing, depends again how competitive it is, but it's still a boost. And changing the SEO of an old listing is not necessarily great. Now, I have revived listings that weren't working by changing the SEO. So you can show up in maybe further down in search, get seen occasionally and build some traction, but it's going to be a little bit harder. So what I'm planning going forwards are, I'll create my listing and then a day or so later, I'll renew it again. And I'll try not to change my SEO. If something's not working, I'll nuke that listing and start a new one.